How do you know when the Pax Romana ends for sure? Golden Age is gone. Well, what if this old man, wealthy, is shouting numbers 25,000 sesterci up to the Praetorian Guard? The guards, they are auctioning off the throne, their protection. It's like cattle at a market. The throne is for sale. In our last lesson, we had the last good emperor. That's Marcus Aurelius, a philosopher, man who chased the golden mean, who ruled himself with wisdom before he ruled the world. And that is gone. Power is not earned now. It's not voted. It's bought with sesterces by the highest bidder. Over this next century, the Senate will be forced to recognize 26 emperors in less than a 49-year period, which matches the number from the previous 250 years. In this lesson, we watch Rome trade philosophy for extortion, and then trade extortion for an iron straitjacket of total control. But I can introduce you to the man who chose his own greed over the whole world. And his name is Didius Julianus. We have a rough century ahead. I'm Mr. Hall. This is Ancient History. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where history reveals truth and wisdom for your journey. We take the classical approach to history. It's grounded in what actually matters to you, like living in a stable, safe place where you can trust the authorities. This is lesson 65. In your complete ancient history course, we're studying the century of struggle from Commodus to Constantine. I want to hand you something in this lesson. It's a piece of the past that was a true turning point. It starts with the Commodus collapse. More than just a crazy emperor. I'll teach you about the 100 years before Constantine. Then see the conditions of that Roman Empire that Constantine was able to take power in. And that sets you up to understand Constantine's Christian changeover. Let's begin. For almost 100 years, Rome had done something no empire had done before. It picked its ruler by skill. They were adopted, chosen, and it wasn't a bloodline, with the exception of Titus, whose father earned the emperorship, and then Commodus, who was born with the purple robe. The best man was always adopted on purpose, deliberately with talent, and turned into a son that was already trained to lead. This is excellence. This is erate. But it changed. In AD 180, Marcus Aurelius did the one thing good emperors before him had avoided. He handed the throne to his own son. That son is named Commodus. Commodus was born in AD 161 and was made co-emperor at just 16 years old. He had had none of his father's wisdom. I've never understood that, really. His father was off fighting barbarians on the front lines. Commodus was there for some of that, but Commodus did not want to govern. He wanted to fight in the arena like a gladiator. He dressed himself in a lion's skin, carried a club, and told everyone he was Hercules reborn. He ordered statues of himself as the demigod Hercules. He put them up across the empire. He tried to rename the city of Rome after himself. He even tried to rename the months of the year he moved out of the royal palace so that he could move into the gladiator barracks. So put yourself in the stands in one of the arenas, in the Flavian arena, the Colosseum, and from a raised platform, Commodus shoots arrows down into the arena as a spectacle. In one single day, he kills 100 bears. He takes a break briefly to drink chilled wine from a cup shaped like that club. He kills elephants. He kills rhinoceros. He kills a giraffe. He shot a giraffe that they used to just bring through just for people to see, like a zoo. And then comes the moment that explains it all. He cut off the head of a running ostrich with a special curved dart, but the bird, headless, keeps running around the arena. Commodus walks over to where the senators are sitting, and he holds up that bloody head in one hand, the sword in the other, and he grins at them. How do we know this? It's like, you could be next. Well, we know it because Cassius Dio. He was sitting right there. That's a senator, a historian. Cassius Dio wrote that he and the other senators were so terrified, and this was so absurd, they chewed their laurel leaves off their crowns just to hide their nervous laughter. That's the record from Cassius Dio. The Senate, the Roman Senate, in AD 192, an arena with the most powerful people in the world eating their own hats so that the madman wouldn't see them shake. This is not sustainable. And it would be by the end of that year, 192, the people closest to Commodus decided to strike before he struck them. His girlfriend Marcia, his chamberlain Ecletus, his guard commander Laetus, they were all in on it. Marcia slipped poison into the wine, but that didn't work. So they sent in a wrestler named Narcissus, and the strongest man in Rome was able to strangle Commodus to death in his own bed. So now the throne is open. The wheels come off a little more, or they come off completely now, because this is an honest old senator named Pertinax. Pertinax takes power and tries to bring back discipline. You know, maybe the golden age won't be gone. This was just a one-off crazy Commodus. But Pertinax lasts 87 days. The Praetorian Guard, the emperor's elite bodyguard, they don't like discipline. They have been acting like they have so much authority, they're in charge. Praetorian guards stormed the palace to kill Pertinax, cut off his head, carry it back to their camp on the end of a spear. And they do something no one had ever dared to do out loud from the walls of their own fortress, the Castra Praetoria. These Praetorian guards announce that the Roman Empire is for sale to the highest bidder. Two men show up. Inside the camp, the auction begins with the father-in-law of Pertinax, that's Sulpicianus. He offers 20,000 sesterces to every single soldier. Outside the wall is Didius Julianus. He's rich. He's soft, but he's hungry for that crown, and he shouts his bids up over the walls with his fingers, and he jumps the price up by 5,000. This is 25,000 sesterces per man. Each one of them essentially would get 6,000 daily wages. The total bill would be 200 million sesterces. The guards throw open the gates and hand him the world. The Praetorian Guard will legitimize Julianus. And when he walks to the palace, the people of Rome don't cheer. They throw stones. They call him a thief. And he lasts 66 days before a common soldier executes him. Because the real armies, the ones guarding the borders, heard about the auction. If you were one of them, how would you feel? Going into this, and from the previous lesson 64, the struggle that the military was having with plague, with replacements, just keeping the barbarians out. They're fighting for what's left of their nation, and now their nation is for sale. They are furious. A tough general named Septimius Severus marched down from Pannonia. That's the wild middle of Europe, and he came to call himself the Avenger of Pertinax. Severus understood something that the others didn't, that the Senate had no real power anymore. This has been going on for a long time. It's been eroding. The army was the power, So Severus made it official. He fired the old Praetorian Guard and threw them out of Italy. He parked a full legion just about 12 miles from Rome. It's like putting a loaded gun right in front of the Senate. He grew that army from 30 legions to 33 legions. And remember that a denarius is your silver coin. It's worth a daily wage. If you've ever seen a mercury dime, this was like about the same size. These go back to the early 1900s. They're 90% silver. If you melt them down, they're worth a few bucks. Some of them are rare and collectible. The concept of the denarius, it's like the drachma. It is one daily wage. And the troops, they get one, and 4 sesterces make 1 denarius. That's what the soldiers would get. It was about 300 per year. They really knew that the silver made the coin valuable. Severus raised a soldier's base pay from 300 denarii to 400. That's a good increase. We're going to get more troops, more loyalty. But to pay for it, he started quietly stealing the silver out of the denarius itself so he could make more coins with it. So when Severus lay dying in the cold north of Britain, it's in modern York, England, actually. The year is AD 211. He gave his 2 sons one last piece of advice. One is Caracalla, and the other is Geta. The 2 of them leaned in. His father told them, be in harmony with each other. Make the soldiers rich. And look down on everyone else. And that's it. That's the whole philosophy of Rome now. The common good is dead. Take care of the men with the swords and forget everybody else. Power. Was Severus saying to buy the army's love? Loyalty. Do you see any problem with that? What is the wisdom? One problem, if loyalty has a price, then loyalty can be outbid. If it's for sale, let's look at the year 235. In AD 235, an emperor named Severus Alexander tried to pay German tribe to just go away instead of fighting them. Kind of negotiate the payment to avoid the fight. His own soldiers thought that was weak. They murdered him. They raised up one of their own. It was a giant soldier named Maxientius Thrax, a man of low birth who had never held any political office. This was the start of a 3rd century crisis that you already heard about in the introduction, because for 50 years, this throne becomes like a revolving door. Biggest army this week could influence who rules the throne. Watch the numbers because they really tell the story, because 49 years go by, 26 different emperors, and it took all 250 previous years for the equivalent amount. The stability. So consider this, the need for a government to be stable and predictable. Does the Constitution hold up a set of rules so that we can trust what the process is? Even if you get good leaders and bad leaders, there's a process that comes next. But with an average emperor of about 2 years, and this is all contingent upon the strength of the military and all of these factors, it's not good. Decius and his entire army are wiped out by the Goths at the swamp. That was Abritus. Philip the Arab gets killed in battle. Carinus is killed by his own troops. These are how quickly these guys go down. You've never heard of any of these emperors. They're not around long enough to make an impact. And you wonder if one of them could have possibly just made it long enough to bring stability back. I'm teasing out a little bit before the end of this lesson. You're going to hear about a couple that they do. They last, and changes will come. But about half of these emperors during this crisis period are murdered by their own bodyguards. their own soldiers, the people that are supposed to be loyal to them. Have you had a moment like this where loyalty didn't win out? Something smaller, how did wisdom play in? This is a great comment to leave. We just would really enjoy learning some of these lessons, some of these eureka moments my kids have reported, since the 90s. In a crisis like this, in a situation where loyalty should be the virtue that is valued, but we forgot about the money. Loyalty is one thing, but it's being paid for by coin. Every one of those emperors has a desperate problem about the coins. They've got to pay the soldiers or they will get killed. The empire's not growing to bring in new bounty, new plunder, no new conquests, so they decide to cheat. How could you cheat? Make new coins like the Antoninius, stamp it out and say it's worth 2 denarii. But they barely put any more silver in it than a 1 denarius used to have. When Caracalla first makes this coin, it's about half real silver. And then each emperor shaves a little more silver out, stretch it out, thin it down a little bit more. This becomes the thing. Have you noticed that 90% silver dimes are rare collectibles now because how much silver is in our dime today? By the time of an emperor named Gallienus, that coin between 2.5% and 5% silver, what used to be more like 90, it's basically a bronze slug, just with a thin silver coating on top. Hey, that's what we do. Although theirs is just a silver wash, it actually rubs off. There's something about fake money. People aren't stupid. So what do you think is about, what am I going to say next? What starts to happen? People start hiding their old good silver denarii. They refuse to take the new junk. Prices go up. Inflation. Soldiers pay. They're getting paid in these debased coins. What is debasing your currency? That's what I've just been describing. They are simply saying the money is worth more when it's really worth less. Nothing is backing it up like silver. Well, the government just gives up and needs to pay the troops in something that matters, like actual grain, actual animals. They need to feed the army. So now we're going back to barter. Ordinary people stop their merchant trades. Trade is going down. The economy is going to go down because now we're just bartering. And of course, the enemies are watching this. The barbarians at the gates. We've got the Goths, the Vandals, the Alemanni. When they smash through the border walls, the Alemanni come over the Alps. They actually threaten the city of Milan. But the big threat from the east is the new Persian Empire, the Sassanids, rising up with a fierce king, Shapur the First. The year is AD 260, and now Roman Emperor Valerian marches a huge army to the east to try to stop the Sassanids. But he loses everything at the Battle of Edessa. And then the unthinkable happened. Valerian is captured alive. A Roman emperor is a prisoner. Lactantius is a Roman writer that tells this story. It's so awful. I considered not telling it, but I want to make you a classical scholar. King Shapur used this captured Emperor Valerian as a human footstool. When Shapur climbed onto his horse, he stepped on the back of Valerian. When Valerian finally died, Lactantius writes about being flayed, that his skin was peeled off, that he was dyed a bright red. He was stuffed with straw. He was hung in a Persian temple like a trophy. Whether that is true or exaggerated, people know. We know. that Rome could lose, that Rome could be humiliated. The emperor treated like that. The empire literally is going to break into three parts. Now, in the West, Postumus will be a general building his own breakaway Gallic empire with its own senate. It's in the city of Cologne. In the east, a queen named Zenobia carves out the Palmyrene Empire, seizing Egypt, and in the middle, Rome is going to claw to survive. Here's one soldier emperor who can beat back the Goths. His name is Aurelian. Maybe he has a fix. He crushes Zenobia. He forces Western rebels to surrender. He tries to fix the broken currency problem. They called him Restitutor Orbis, the restorer of the world. Hey, at any time this could come back, right? But his own officers murder him. They were tricked by a forged letter. So here's a question that really hangs out there. The empire is back in one piece for the moment. It's broken on the inside. How is government even possible when the foundation is shattered? How do you put those pieces back together? In AD 284, Diocletian shows up. Diocletian has a plan. He's tough. He's a cavalry commander from Dalmatia. He was born poor. He has a soldier's training, a soldier's mind, and a big idea about chaos. He sees it as a disease, and that total mathematical control is the cure. All right, so we don't want chaos. How about a tetrarchy, the rule of 4? Diocletian says that one man can't guard a border of this size. He splits the empire into 4 different rulers. 2 seniors, they're called the Augusti. Senior emperors called the Augusti himself and Maximilian. And then 2 junior emperors called Caesares, Galerius, and Constantinus. Chlorus, not Constantine the Great. Constantinus, Chlorus, and Galerius are the juniors. They are Caesares. The 2 junior emperors, the Caesares, are trained to take over later. No more guessing who rules next. And notice what happens to the city of Rome. The 4 rulers don't even live there. They set up new capitals close to the borders where the wars actually are: Nicomedia, Milan, Trier, and Sirmium. The most famous city of Earth. What? Rome. What is it? A museum now? Diocletian then rebuilds the machine of the government. He takes away the army from local governors so that no governor can ever bribe an army. Can't grab that throne again the ways we've been learning in this lesson. He breaks the empire into more than 100 small provinces for organizational purposes. It's going up from 40 provinces to 100, so that no one piece is so strong that it could rebel. A lot of big changes with Diocletian. Diocletian divides, starts with a D, helps you remember. Diocletian divides. But he also tried to outlaw rising prices. Okay, another economics lesson. Because in the year 301, he issues the Edict on Maximum Prices. He blames inflation on wild greed. It's greedy merchants, evil traders. Conveniently forgets that he is the one who was wrecking the denarius in the first place. Sets up top maximum prices on 1,200 different goods. Price controls, fixed pricing. Every price is counted in denarii. The old silver coin, everyone still measured, even though the real silver one has completely vanished. Nobody's got them anymore. So if you charge 1 denarius more than what the maximum price is, guess what? Death penalty. So a live male lion, if you wanted to buy one, is 150,000 denarii. A single pound of purple silk is also 150,000 denarii. These are ancient records. These are luxuries. What about wheat? A bushel of wheat, 100 denarii. That's supposed to be 100 daily wages for a bushel, which would be essentially to keep you alive for the year. A bushel would do it, and you've got to work at 1/3 of the year just for your food. And that's no meat. If you want a pound of beef, 8 denarii. In theory, 8 daily wages. I'll keep going. A fattened goose is 200. A pinch of saffron, 2,000. So then, did daily wages go up? A farm worker's whole day is now 25 denarii. A baker is worth 50 denarii. A skilled painter, 75. Somebody who can teach math and arithmetic is 75 denarii per month per student. So Diocletian never was taught free market economics, that you can't take away the natural law of supply and demand. It's never worked. Merchants, do you know what I'm going to say next? Merchants stop selling. If something wasn't worth it, they hid it or they bartered with it. Shops became empty places. Trade went underground into the black markets. The memory I have visiting communist East Berlin in 1989, going into a market where there were just there was one choice of the type of meat. It was kind of like a ham roll, and there were barely any of them. There was just one type of cheese. There were barely any of them. There's the only thing, they had lots of different bread, fancy breads, but in a communist government, they set prices, set price controls. And the result is very little selection, very little production. And we're seeing it here. So Diocletian's price law just quietly died out within a few years, because even though Diocletian wanted total control, he didn't get it. But not just in money, Diocletian wanted total control now of the soul. Worship. He wanted everyone to worship the old Roman gods in the same old Roman way, to hold the empire together. If you're coming here from lesson 57, you remember the imperial cult created by Augustus to deify his father. He was adopted by Julius Caesar, but it was to unify, that there would be beautiful architecture all over the world. There would be a common way to worship. It would hold the empire together. So Diocletian's like, yeah, bringing it back. But the cultural collision, Christianity is huge at this point. It's been growing decade after decade. 50 years earlier, Decius had made everyone sacrifice to the Roman gods, get a paper certificate to prove that they were loyal to the Roman gods. And some of these papers have been found in the sands of Egypt. There's a woman named Aurelia Caris from a village in Egypt, and it swears that she sacrificed, she poured the offering, ate the meat, and it was witnessed and it was stamped. You had to have one of these to be in the market, to buy, to sell. If you didn't have one of these certificates, you're not accepted. So Diocletian's like, okay, let's bring this thing back. He had a very fierce junior emperor, Caesarus, named Galerius. I mentioned him. That paperwork is now going to become a weapon. And this period is called the Great Persecution. It is known as the 10th Great Persecution in Fox's Book of Martyrs. It comes as 4 cold bureaucratic steps. Step 1, tear down the Christian church, burn holy scrolls, take Christian legal rights away, strip Christians of their legal rights. Step 2, arrest every Christian priest, every Christian bishop, every leader. So many are jailed. In fact, the jails were so filled, ordinary criminals were getting released just to make room. The third step is to torture those prisoners until they sacrificed. They complied that they would be a part of the imperial cult again. And step 4, every citizen would face death. So not just the ones in the prison, they are the church leaders. That was step 3. Step 4 is going to be everybody else. Either they're going to be sent to the mines or face death if they did not publicly worship the Roman imperial cult. We have these historians who lived through this period. Eusebius and Lactantius, they wrote it down plainly. Lactantius even called the whole struggle an agon, the contest, the old Greek word that was the games, the Olympic Games, which were also religious events for Zeus, but he's calling it like a contest the way a wrestling match would be, but he's saying it's for the soul of the world. Christianity was such a large part of the population at this point. Historians writing, very unsettling, but it's paperwork you have to participate. It's become a paperwork empire. It's the most organized state now on the planet. They're trying to crush religion, a faith, Christianity, with edicts, with torture. And this was not working. You cannot stamp out those beliefs, those Christian beliefs, as it's been growing. So Diocletian gives up the throne in AD 305. And his perfect machine instantly falls into civil war. Out of that civil war comes Constantine, the son of one of those 4 rulers. In AD 312 is the famous March on Rome. Constantine fights the rival named Maxientius. The battle is at the Milvian Bridge. Constantine had grown up surrounded by Christian believers. His mother was deeply Christian, Helena, and we'll learn more about Helena in coming lessons. Born poor, rose to be one of the most powerful, important women in history as a Christian, and she does important things in the Holy Lands. Constantine even hired the Christian writer Lactantius to tutor his own son. And on the eve of that battle, Constantine reports the vision, the sign that he experienced. The account, like a dream or a message that his soldiers' shield should be marked in a special way, in a different standard, not the eagle. It would be by this sign. He's told, by this sign you will conquer. And what sign is it? It is the symbol of Christ, the Chi Rho. The Chi Rho. So oftentimes in art, you do see a cross. The cross is not a symbol for Christianity yet. The fish was a symbol. An anchor was a symbol. The Chi Rho was a symbol, and the cross will come later. But for Roman soldiers to put this Chi Rho is the cultural collision going a different direction. Putting a Christian symbol on their shields in this battle. You'll hear more in the next lesson, but with the sign he will conquer is the way it ended up happening. Maxientius loses at the Milvian Bridge. In fact, even drowns in the Tiber River. And the very next year in AD 313, Constantine and his fellow emperor, Licinius, they issue the Edict of Milan. After 3 centuries of varying degrees, 10 great persecutions of Christians being killed, persecuted, it is finally a legal religion, the Edict of Milan in AD 13. So we saw the test. Diocletian bring back the old Roman ways. Constantine open freedom of religion, allow Christianity. Rome doesn't survive by the old ways. The old Roman ways with Commodus. Well, Commodus traded it for a lion skin and glory in the arena. The guards traded it, sold it for sesterces in an auction. The Barracks emperors burned it every 2 years. High turnover rate, loyalty lost. And Diocletian had his grid of laws, wall of fear, price controls, and persecuting Christians. And in the end, Rome survives by becoming something completely brand new. And that is how kingdoms become classical. This is a significant struggle. This lesson has covered a lot of years. Constantine combines the once hunted Christian faith with the most powerful throne on earth. He's trying to bring glory back to Rome, but struggles are ahead. Lesson 66 is coming next, and I'll let Maxientius have the last word. Agon. When he called it an agon, he called it a contest, like a wrestling match. And that contest is just beginning. You'll need to come back to lesson 66 as we see more struggle ahead for the Romans. Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history, and that includes your journey. Because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.